Hello and welcome back to Transfermarkt. I'm Matt and I'm joined again by Ewan this morning to discuss the latest transfer news around the world. We start with Arsenal and they're reportedly lining up a move for West Ham winger Mohammed Kudus as a replacement for Leandro Trossard, who has been targeted by Saudi Pro League side Al Ittihad. Now, these reports are saying that Arsenal could have to pay over €100 million if they do want to bring Mohammed Kudus in from their London rivals West Ham. And while it hasn't been the best start to the season for Kudus, who struggled along with the rest of that West Ham team under new manager Julian Lopetegui, this could still be a very exciting transfer for Arsenal if this is one they can progress with. Ewan.
Yeah, it would be. I'd throw a little bit of caution on the reports just for two factors. One, I don't see Arsenal paying 100 million for Kudus. I think he's a really good player, but I'm not sure he's done enough in the Premier League yet to warrant that sort of outlay. And secondly, I still don't think it's the biggest problem position for Arsenal. I do think they could have an improvement on the left hand side. I'm not sure that's Kudus' favoured position anyway. But I think in the January market, especially, and even next summer, they need to get a new number 9 in. I still can't believe they didn't do it in the summer window. I think you look at their squad. I know they've got Kai Havertz there, whose numbers have been really good, but ultimately, in my opinion, you're not going to win a league with Kai Havertz as your number 9. And that's a position I think Arsenal need to strengthen their forward line more than any. So, yeah, he's a cracking player. He can also play number 10 as well, which maybe could have come in helpful with Odegaard missing the last few weeks of action. But I can't see Arsenal spending that much on a wide player. Certainly not, definitely not in January. Even next summer, I'd be slightly surprised if that's a priority.
Yeah, I think it's become a very common thing, I suppose, in football over the last couple of years that a lot of teams look to diversify their goal scorers rather than having a main focal point and a main goal scorer. But when you're Arsenal, you're up against Man City, who have Erling Haaland, and Liverpool have Mohamed Salah, who isn't putting up the same numbers that he would have been 3 or 4 years ago, but is still scoring quite consistently. And now Luis Diaz may be looking to become the focal point in that team in a title race. I do think Arsenal will need something to compete with that. And Kudus only has 2 goals this season. He actually scored in back-to-back games before picking up that red card against Tottenham. Last season it was 18 goals and 7 assists in all competitions, which is really, really good numbers for West Ham. But like you said, if you're going to spend over €100 million on a player, you want someone who can guarantee you 30 plus goals a season. And of course, if they're not a forward, that wouldn't be the case, but for a forward you would definitely want that, and it's not something you would imagine Kudus would be able to provide to Arsenal. His end product is good, and I think when he's playing well, he's a player who always creates something. He always looks extremely dangerous, and that's great. But like you said, you need someone maybe on the other end of those crosses that can put them away a little bit more consistently, and it just doesn't feel like Kudus will be that player for Arsenal. If the price tag comes down, definitely it's something they should go for, because he is a really, really good player. Still a lot to prove in the Premier League, like you said as well, but it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, because I think he's maybe reached a higher level than West Ham expected him to reach this early on. Maybe they were planning to have him for 3 or 4 years. I don't think that's going to be the case, especially with now their struggles under Julian Lopetegui. Whether he stays or goes, there's going to be some turmoil in that squad as well, so it's one to keep an eye on. And Arsenal, I'm sure, will be in that race whenever it does come to a head. Next up, we do have Barcelona and Bayern Munich, who reportedly both want to sign Porto goalkeeper Diogo Costa, but must pay his €60 million release clause to get a deal done. What are your thoughts on this on the face of it, you?
I don't think it's an astronomical release clause. I don't think it's something that will massively deter clubs. I think both Bayern and Barca probably have to improve their goalkeeping department. Obviously, Ter Stegen's injuries has brought Szczesny into Barcelona this season. I think Neuer's reached the end of the road. I think this will be his last season at Bayern Munich. So when you're looking at goalkeepers across Europe, then I think Costa's name always comes up as one of the best, emerging goalkeepers. He is, 25 now, but that's really young for a goalkeeper. He's definitely ready to step up to a top European club. Portugal's number 1. I think people might have watched him against Manchester United earlier in the Europa League, and he had a poor game. He had two real mistakes there, but he's a top goalkeeper. He's someone who's very good at playing from the back with his feet, which both Barca will want to do under Hansi Flick, and Bayern will want to do under Vincent Kompany. So he makes real logical sense for both those clubs, and I think he is one of the top 10 best goalkeepers in the world at the moment. So it makes complete sense that he's on the radar of those clubs.
And if it was going to be a €60 million fee, it would make him the third most expensive goalkeeper of all time, narrowly behind Alisson and quite a fair bit behind Kepa Arrizabalaga in first position. I think he sometimes gets a bad rap among fans who maybe don't watch as much Portuguese football, and I'm not claiming to watch it every single week, but like that performance against Man United in the Europa League, things like that tend to get blown out of proportion a little bit, and especially when that reputation is really high going into that sort of game, and he has a few dodgy moments. But the top class performances that he's had on the global stage are definitely there in a much higher volume. Saved 3 penalties against Slovenia and Euro 2024 to spare Ronaldo after he should have put that game to bed. And I think when he first jumped into the eyes of a lot of people was 2 or 3 years ago. He saved penalties in 3 consecutive games for Porto in a really good Champions League campaign. I think it's the record for the most. And what's interesting to me with this one is you look at Bayern Munich and the goalkeepers they've had. Manuel Neuer and even Oliver Kahn before that are known for their penalty saving. It's one of their best attributes. And Diogo Costa has saved 25% of the penalties he's faced. So maybe it's a little bit of a common theme or something Bayern Munich look for in goalkeepers. But he's definitely a really, really top talent who has a huge career ahead of him. And it's for me, it's a foregone conclusion that he will be joining one of those top teams in Europe like Barcelona or Bayern Munich when he is on the move next. A player whose career is maybe going a little bit of a different trajectory is Randal Kolo Muani, and a handful of Premier League clubs have asked about signing the PSG striker on loan in January, with all parties prepared to discuss a departure from Parc des Princes for Kolo Muani. He's only made 3 appearances this season. We all know he's out of favour under Luis Enrique, and it's not a situation that seems like turning around for him. From a market value perspective, he's had 4 consecutive downgrades since joining PSG. His value has halved from 80 million to 40 million, and after a sensational spell in Frankfurt, it's just not happened for him in Paris, Ewan, has it?
No, he wasn't even on the bench for PSG's last 2 games. I think he's played under 300 minutes in the league as well, so he's clearly not in favour under Luis Enrique, so it seems like a completely logical January move. Now, I can imagine a number of Premier League clubs will look at that. You imagine even someone like, I know he's not been good, but could Arsenal look at him as to come in as a backup striker? I watched him against Belgium for France during the international break. He scored 3 goals for France in 2 games against Belgium in the recent international. So, listen, he's clearly got potential. He's clearly got ability, but he's just not doing it at PSG. Maybe the move to the Premier League would suit him. I can see a number of clubs coming in, a loan fee with a perhaps obligation to buy. It makes complete sense in the January window. He really needs to go to a club where he's going to play, week in, week out, and be a key player for them. And I think he'd actually maybe kind of revive his career in the Premier League and earn a move here permanently, because I can't imagine PSG will look to hold on to him in January. It's a deal that will happen. He will leave Paris in January.
I think the point you made that there's definitely quality in there is a really important one, because I think it's easy to look at a player moving to PSG and thinking, they're a side who dominate the league. I know a few teams have won it, other teams have won it in the last decade or so, but of course PSG are expected to be the top team in France. You're expected as a forward to be leading the goal scoring charts, but life at PSG hasn't been straightforward over the last couple of years. There's been a lot of commotion, not only the Kylian Mbappe saga, but there's been a lot of turnover in managers, and they now do look to have a little bit of stability under Luis Enrique, and maybe he's the one that could get them back to the highest level that they have achieved recently. But of course Kolo Muani just not going to be a part of that. The quality is definitely there. The numbers he put up at Frankfurt in the 50 games that he played for them, and in France before that, he was scoring and assisting for fun. That quality is definitely there. It's just about finding a team, finding a system, a manager, and maybe a footballing culture that can extract that from him. It's not uncommon for a player to thrive in one country and just really struggle in another. But I've no doubt that when he does find a club if he does find a club that'll fit him, he'll get back to that level. He'll be scoring goals again, and he's still only 25 years of age. It's not like it's a last chance saloon for him. There's time for him to turn this around, and I think with the quality that we've seen from him in the past, it'll be good for us as football fans to be able to see that again. So I can hope that he does find that team and get back to that really high level. Whether it will be in the Premier League or not, it remains to be seen. Do you think, just looking at the profile of clubs that could maybe be looking at him, do you think it would have to be one of the top 6 clubs to be able to convince him to make a move, or can you see him making a move to maybe, I don't want to call Villa or Newcastle a mid-table team, but one outside of that traditional Big 6, I suppose?
Yeah, I wouldn't really a team like Newcastle or Villa. I don't think he's going to go to Villa just because they've got Ollie Watkins and John Duran. But I mean, yeah, any club in the Premier League are pushing in the top half. I think that's a fair move. You got to remember as well, no disrespect to League One, but coming to the Premier League and playing will have a much bigger profile than they would playing in League One. So there's much more eyes on it, so we could attract interest of other clubs quite easy. And Premier League clubs, pretty much any Premier League club could probably afford to pay what PSG would want to sell for him. Out with your maybe your smaller handful of clubs. So Yeah, I think a move to any kind of Premier League club would suit really. To be honest, he's not. I don't see him joining Southampton or Ipswich or anything like that. But you look at something like West Ham, that'd be a club I'd look at straight away, because I think they've really lacked a striker for a number of years now. I know they've had Mikel Antonio, but he's coming towards the end of his career. Fulkrug, that transfer's just not worked out. Someone like Cole Muani up front for West Ham would make complete sense. I think that's the level of club where you can go in, you maybe go loan to the end of the season, you put a 50 million euro obligation to buy, and I think that'd be a perfect club for him, someone like West Ham.
Finally for today, Santos are in talks over bringing Neymar back to the club when his contract with Al Hilal expires in the summer of 2025. And this, I think, is just a bit of a feel-good story. It's one that it's easy to see happening with the struggles that Neymar has had since he moved to Saudi Arabia. Only recently returned from a year-long injury, playing 13 minutes in an AFC Champions League game. And Santos are actually on the brink of promotion back to the top division in Brazil after their shock relegation recently. And during a press conference after their most recent victory, Neymar interrupted it with a video call to speak to the Santos players and staff. I think it's not one that needs much analysis in terms of the how realistic it is or the financial aspect of the transfer. I think this just feels like, is this what Neymar could want to do at the end of his transfer, at the end of his season? And do you think that's a transfer that would suit him?
Yeah, but part of me still holds out hope that he'll come back to one of Europe's top 5 leagues for a couple of seasons. But I think that looks increasingly unlikely with his injury problems. But to me, he's easily one of the most gifted players of his generation. A fantastic footballer. I think if he found the right club in the right league, he could come back to one of the top 5 leagues. There's also been talk recently about him going to MLS. I think he's bought a house in Miami. That's obviously led to links between his friendship with Lionel Messi and perhaps going there. But yeah, I think he's bound to leave Saudi at the end of the season. His contract's obviously up. That move's not worked out for him. Well, certainly from a playing perspective, financially, I imagine it's been pretty sweet. But I hold out hope that he can come back to a top 5 league. I mean, the dream would be the Premier League, but I just don't think the physicality would suit him at that age. But he's just so good that could he come here for like a season or two and play in the Premier League? Ability-wise, certainly. It's just about fitness and mentality. But yeah, Santos would be a lovely place to end his career, but I think he could probably do that. And when he's 34, 35, he's still 32, so could he give 2 seasons in a European league again? I wouldn't rule it out.
There have been links to Barcelona over the last couple of weeks. Santos not the only team reportedly considering a move for him, and with Barcelona's ever-present financial issues, a free transfer for any player I think would suit them down to the ground. Of course, there'd be a signing on bonus and the salary to be concerned with after that, but I completely agree with you that Neymar, he's in an era where players have become very robotic and very tactically kind of overbearing. Their performances are tactically overbearing. Someone like Neymar, who just plays with freedom, is such a joy to watch, and we need more players like that still in the game. And there are a few coming through at the moment, but someone like Neymar, it's another year or two, like you said, at that top level. Do you think a Barcelona move could happen? I think if we put aside the injury concerns, because we don't know how that will affect him in the long term, but from a footballing standpoint, do you think it's something we could see?
It's going to come down to finances, isn't it? Because he'll want a big wage, I imagine, or maybe he waives that because he's made so much money in Saudi. But Neymar being there and being a bench option, or pushing for a first team place and helping the likes of Yamal and all the other younger players that are coming through would be an exciting prospect. He was brilliant at Barcelona. I'm not sure how he's still viewed in Barcelona after leaving for PSG, so that might be another kind of side issue to that. But I think he's got the ability to come and still play in the top 5 leagues. So if he can stay fit to the end of the season, I imagine that there'll be a few clubs looking around him. Even Italy, like a club like AC Milan, Inter Milan, you can see him going and playing in Italy, where it's a kind of slower game and it's more tactical. His one-on-one ability would be really good in that league. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Neymar. I'd love to see him back in a top European league.
AC Milan could be in the market for a new left winger, the current situation with Rafael Leao. But do let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on Neymar's future. Do you think he will end his career, or he'll make the move now to Santos, or if we could see him back in the top 5 leagues in Europe? Do also let us know about the other stories we've covered today. Give us your thoughts in the live chat or the comments down below. And if you do want more of this content, daily transfer updates from us